All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, and thank you for attending today's webcast, Working with Assemblies and Sub-Assemblies in AutoCAD Electrical. Our presenter is Rick France, Solutions Engineer with Hagerman and Company. We also have Ruben Cabreros, Solutions Engineer with Hagerman and Company, on the line to address questions throughout the presentation. Just a few housekeeping items. This presentation is being broadcasted in listen-only mode. You can ask questions by typing them into the questions panel located on the side of your screen, and Ruben will address those throughout the presentation. At the conclusion of the broadcast, when you exit GoToMeeting, you'll be prompted to fill out a short 3-question survey. We ask that you take a few moments to fill that out. Lastly, all attendees will receive a certificate of attendance and a link to the recording of this presentation. Rick, whenever you're ready, you can begin.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. I'm glad you could make it. We're going to kind of go through, as you saw through the preview that was online when you were signing up. There's 3 different methods we're going to look at. That's actually a lie. We're going to look at 4 different methods. The first 3 methods we're going to look at, which are the ones that are out of the box. So that's going to be working with the product exactly as it is out of the box. And the 3 different methods they have. I'm throwing in a 4th method at the end, which I'll go through, which is basically built on top of the 3rd one, but it's kind of a twist to it to make some things a little bit simpler and work a little bit easier for it. And so if I go too fast, I apologize. I've got an hour, so I've actually set a timer here beside me. So I'm going to try to go through this, but there will be a recording so you can go back and look at it, and I will try to pace myself as best I can while doing this and make sure the clicks aren't too bad and too fast for you. First method we're going to look at, or before we look at any of the methods actually, I want to look at one setting in the project properties. So I'm assuming most of you know how to go to the project properties, and on the Components tab, you'll see there's a button here for item numbering. Because of when you're working with assemblies, you're going to be dealing with the way that it numbers the items. That's going to be an important part of how you set it up. And there's 2 different parts to this section. One of them has no effect on any method that we use other than how it's going to number per drawing, and that is this item numbering mode right here. And basically I like to reset at the beginning of each drawing my numbering system so that one drawing may have items 1 through 10, the next drawing would start with items 1 through 20 or whatever it is, and basically it resets at 1 instead of accumulate project. That's just a personal preference. Either method will work with anything we do today. The second part, though, however, will have a lot to do with what we're doing today, and that's the item assignments. Now, you have a choice of a per component basis or per part number basis. The background I came from, we always did everything per part number basis. That's been the true for every company I've ever worked for, so that is my personal preference, but it is a personal preference. You can also work with per component basis. The difference between the 2 is basically, if you're not familiar, is per component basis says I have an assembly. We're going to be using a fuse holder block, and a cover for that fuse as our assembly we're working with today. And basically per component basis would say when I select that fuse and place it in my drawing, it's going to put as item number 5, the fuse, the holder, and the cover all as item number 5. All 3 different parts as item number 5. That would be per component basis. Per part number basis says that item 5 would be the fuse, item 6 would be the holder, and item 7 would be the cover. So that would be the difference between the 2 different types. However, when you're looking at method 2, which is dealing with the assembly codes and assembly list, you can only do a per component basis version anytime you use the assembly codes and the assembly list. You can mix and match the 2 with the per part number by doing that, but you'll get some different results in your bill of materials. So the assembly code method will only work with the per component basis. That being said, I'm going to come back in here, and the first method we're going to look at is one that probably everybody out of the box when they first start using it ends up working with, and that's just placing the items one at a time. I'm going to go through this part quickly as far as the placement. I'll be doing it while I talk at least. But let's see, I need to be on a panel, don't I? So I'm going to the icon menu here. I'm going to pick a fuse. I'm just going to use the fuse tag. So the first thing is that you build it piece by piece. Now, because I'm building this piece by piece, I'm using Busman fuses. That's what I'm going to be working with. And it's a R250. Right there's the one I'm going to be using right there for the holder. I've actually, no footprints come out of the box for Busman fuses, so I had to create all the Busman fuses myself just using the symbol builder. And so this is already set up with the footprint lookup to use the correct holder and everything. I'm just going to go ahead and place it. Being the holder itself, it's not going to be reverting back to a schematic, so I'm not going to connect it to schematic. I'm just going to go ahead and give this one item number 7, and I'm only doing it so far down because I want to make sure that I'll kind of the sequence when we look at it in the bill of materials, it'll be a little bit easier to keep track of. So basically that's setting the holder in, and then you're going to come in and put the fuse on top. I've got wipeouts. Everything here is part of the Busman fuse catalog, so we're going to be basically using, I need to clear the filters, basically using everything in their catalog. Right now I am using the out-of-the-box catalog. I'm going to do the KTN R30, which is the 30 amp fuse. We'll pop it in right there. This piece, because it's a fuse, I am going to actually connect to the schematic list to the fuse. I've already got a pre-drawn schematic here. That's nothing but wires with fuses on it. There's nothing special about it. I'll show you that in a minute. And it's using the out-of-the-box fuse component. But we'll connect that up, and because of this being an assembly, I'll just drag that little 30 amp out of the way because the cover would cover it up here in a minute. So basically, placing the items, you're placing them one at a time. There are no fuse covers in the default catalog, so I've got a secondary catalog set up here where I've already placed this SAMI-9I Busman one-pole fuse cover in order to use that with this one. And again, since this is just the cover, it doesn't really need to be connected up to the schematic list, so I just need to, I'm going to make that one item number 9, and I forgot to give an item number to that fuse. So let's grab it real quick and make it item number 3 there. All right, so basically it's putting it in one at a time. It's very time consuming. It's just as time consuming to balloon. If I come in here and start doing the catalog check on this and selecting and placing the balloon on it, it's just they're gonna have to be done one at a time because they are one at a time placed items. So we'll go ahead and put this one on the quadrant. Nothing special about anything we're doing here other than the fact that it's going to look identical to the things we do with the other assembly codes when you do them in a minute. So basically we get it in there. It's all manual, one at a time. A little bit time consuming. Another thing about it when you do it this method, if you've ever done this, if I go to any piece here to look at it, I'm going to get on a catalog check just that one item because, again, they are not connected in any way other than physically the way I see them on the screen. So there's nothing that's going to let me see everything that's in that assembly through catalog check other than when I look at it on the balloon. Another thing I can't do with an assembly like this is I can't use the copy footprint command up here. Use copy footprint, I'll get only the footprint that I selected. I missed it. There we go. I'm only getting the cover, so it's not really doing me much good since I got the cover. I didn't get everything. However, I can use the copy assemblies command right here. Now the copy assemblies command is nice because I can copy all 3 parts, the balloons and everything all in one copy command. Just got to be a little careful with it because there's a little function that happens that you got to make sure to hit the skip button on, because as I copied that assembly, the first thing you'll notice is this one is still fuse 101. So it's seeing this as the same fuse at this time. Now if I came in here, and I took the fuse which was connected to fuse 101, my screen's going a little berserk with the go to meeting there for some reason. But when I select this fuse 102 right here, what's going to happen is I'm going to get another question in a minute. I'm going to go ahead and change this one just so it will appear different and see if I'll give it an item number 4. So I'm just changing this one out to be the 20 amp fuse instead of the 30 amp fuse just to force a change here so you can see what I'm talking about. It's going to give me a box, I could say yes on that one, but it's going to give me this dialog box here with saying updated related components. When you do the copy assembly with this assembly in this method, you need to make sure to hit skip here, and then everything is working just right. Let me show you what happens. So if you forget to hit skip, I'm going to take this whole assembly right here, copy it one more time. I'm not going to bother going through every step I did just a minute ago. I'm just going to change this one to Schematic List 103. Now if I forget to hit skip and hit yes update, what's going to happen here is it's going to change that first fuse to fuse 103 also. So it kept a link between this, and I've all of a sudden got duplicate information about the same fuse, to the point where if I change this one to a 30 amp, it'll change the other one to the 30 amp. Going back to that very first drawing, the schematic, I told you it's a simple drawing, just has a bunch of fuses on some wires. It actually changed back here on this drawing, those two to be the same fuse 103. So that skip button is very important to keep everything correct. It's very easy to hit it when you're copying an assembly in this method, and therefore it's very difficult to fix once you've done that. Now what you'll see here is I can come over here and do a retag on this particular drawing. It will fix those fuses here on the retag of the schematic. However, back on the panel, they're still linked to the same schematic. Even if I change this one back to fuse 103, it's going to just redo the entire process over and over again. So the only way really to break it, to fix it, would be to go through and reassign this one with the skip and everything. I'm just going to simply delete it, because that's all I need to do right now. I don't really need that particular fuse in there twice. But you got to just pay attention to make sure you don't accidentally forget that skip. Now, how this looks in the bill of material. The bill of material is going to be probably something you're used to seeing, but I just wanted to be able for consistency. Bill of material I'm using is one that I've created myself. It's just the typical one that I use all the time. And basically, we're going to do the active drawing and use a set file for the purchase bill of material using a tally purchase list format. I'm not going to walk through that every time, but that's just the type that we're using here. And we'll go ahead and get rid of those duplicate numbers, place it in here, close it. And so as you can see, the bill of material looks pretty much with per item numbering and everything, and the way it's keeping count and everything. So that's personally the way I like to see it. So doing it one at a time is going to do it in that method. There's no way for me at one at a time to do a per component basis type for that, because it doesn't see them as one piece. It sees them as each individual parts. So it's going to give me a per item only. So there's no per component type of bill of material that I can do with that particular method. So in a nutshell, and to make this faster, I'm just going to delete these slides as we hit them. So whoops, as we hit them. The pros and cons of building an assembly one part at a time. Most people are doing it this method when they first learn the product until they learn any other method. But basically the pros are you don't have to do any customization. And that's pretty good if you don't like to get in there and tinker with things. There's no customization involved. Another pro would be you can do per part or per component item number. That's incorrect. It should be per part only item number. I just noticed that that particular slide's incorrect, but it's a per part only item number, okay, when you're using that particular method. Now you do have the ability with the assembly code to mix it with that type, and then you'd be able to do per component item numbering. But initially you don't have that ability. All right, and then you can mix and match at will. In other words, I can have a 20 amp, 30 amp, all of them look the same. I can just pretty much mix and match them around. But the cons here, it's the most time-consuming method of all the methods we're going to look at today. So that's one of them. You can only balloon stuff one at a time. It's not easily reusable in another drawing or another project. In other words, I can copy and paste it. That's the only way I'm going to get it from one to the other. There's not an easy way to be able to save this. Well, you could save it as a assembly, I guess, but that would be for another part of another class. But there's no easy way to do it. It's easy to make mistakes when you're copying those assemblies, as you saw when I had two of them linked together. There's no way to have an assembly catalog checked, and there is with the schematic, it doesn't contain any multi-part information, which I didn't show you, but basically, if you went back over here to the schematic and I looked at this particular fuse, it doesn't carry any of the information other than that one fuse. Now, for the sake of time, I'm not filling out descriptions and things like that. So basically, that's the way most people are doing it out of the box. The more advanced method, the one that Autodesk created in this, or actually VIA added to this years and years ago, and it's still a valid function in doing this, is using the assembly and codes in the assembly list fields. Now, what those are, I'm going to show you through AutoCAD through Access. In the actual access of the database of the fuses, which I'm in right now, I'm going to search down for R250, and right here you can see it's found some I've already done in the catalog. For the sake of time, I've done a 2 amp and a 30 amp, or a 3 amp. The reason I did it this way is because I'm going to be using that 30 and 20 amp in all the other functions that I do, and you can't mix and match. Once I put assembly code and assembly list in this database for a particular item, I can't then change it to a per part numbering from one of the other methods that we just used. So I can only use it in the assembly code assembly list method. So that's the first thing I wanted to point out, is that basically what you're setting up is a very unique parent-child relationship. What happens is the parent of this assembly code is going to be tied to items that are in the assembly list. So we're going down here a little bit further. You'll see I've got another one here for a one-pole block, fuse block. This, the only difference, the one we used a minute ago was the CR. Again, I can't mix and match, so I have to use a different one. The CR one is the same box load term. It just has a clip. It's the only difference between the two. And with it, I have that same code in the assembly list. If you come down here a little bit further, I had to add a SAMI fuse cover from Busman to be able to attach an assembly list to it also. Now, because I'm using that, this is really not the catalog number, so don't excuse me for that, but the only way I could mix and match these in one database without having to constantly change from one project to another for this was to just come up with a bogus name for one of them, and I chose to use it for this particular one. So in real life, it's a 9i, but I'm using that. And the other ones, you can't mix and match these assembly code, assembly list items. So I had to add it here. The second thing here is, you remember when I added that cover last time, I went to my secondary personal company catalog that we were using, and not the default catalog. Assembly code and assembly list will only work in the default catalog. You cannot use a secondary catalog with them. You have to use the default catalog. For that reason alone, it's a deal breaker for me personally, because I like to keep everything separate in that separate catalog. So for that reason alone, I personally don't care for this method, but it does work quite well and work quite good. And some people who like to do the per component basis version, this is a very good method for doing that. So here I've got that one added in here. So just let me give you another slide here to kind of show you this with everything together instead of separated. So all I've really done on this one is make it to where this is that same catalog. I just got it sorted down to where all you're seeing are the items. So basically, in this method, the nice thing about it is I can have several different fuses all set up with the assembly code as the parent, and this holder here and this cover here set up to be used as the children, which is the holder and the cover. So if I pick any one of these fuses in my catalog, I only did the 2 here, but if I had this set up, if I picked any one of these fuses, it would automatically attach the holder and the cover to it in this particular instance. So this is why I say it's kind of a weird parent-child, because the parent can have only one or two children, but the children can have as many parents as they choose. It's kind of backwards to real life, I guess you might say. But it's the way this is set up is assembly code tells it whenever you pick this item, whenever you pick that item, it will pick the children that go along with it. So how's that work when we're putting things together? Well, the first thing I'm going to grab is an icon menu here, go to the fuse panel here, and we're going to look up back in the default catalog for that one of those 2. There's the 2 right there. And if you look over here, you can see there's the 2 with the assembly code in it. So I'll pick that KTNR2, place it. Now this one, if I was to use it as it is right now, and just say OK, it's going to, never mind, this is the next one I had that does that. I've already got this set up in the footprint lookup to where it's actually using the correct assembly and everything on the footprint. Got my thoughts backwards there. Just see the other one in a minute. And so right there, as soon as I do that, if I want to multiple, we'll go ahead and set up the schematic list and put this one fresh in as 103 there. Hit multiple lookup. Doesn't see any of that information at this time. Do a catalog check though. There's all three of the pieces. Everything is there. Everything's attached. It's going through the assembly code that is getting that information. Place it in there. Another thing I forgot to do is give it a item number so I can do the bubble on it. Let it go through that motion. So now when we balloon it, I'm going to have to turn my O-snap off so it will quit doing that. Now when we balloon it, we can see that it's going to put the one single balloon on it because it's doing a per component basis. No matter how I set it back in this project settings back here, assembly codes always do a per component basis. Okay? They're excluded from the per item number. So basically what happens is this is easy to copy. I can use copy footprint. I don't have to worry about skipping or anything. I just copy it, connect it up to another fuse. I'm good and done. If I wanted to change this one to a different fuse here, it's going to work the same way. Everything just needs a new item number, but everything is kind of clicking with it. So it's pretty quick and easy. Once you get it set up on an item, there's just a couple of pitfalls. One of them being that, in my opinion, that you can't do the per numbering thing. But another issue here that you're going to have is what if, let's say, you wanted to use that same fuse in one of the double holders? What you'll notice here, I'll show you two things here real quick while I'm in the catalog. What you'll notice here is, let's say I wanted to use that holder that was there for the R250. The one COR, I believe it was. I can't even get to it here. You see, I see the one CR here. Here's the one PR, the one QR. Let's go a little bit further so you can see it really come down here. I see all four of those particular holders, but that one I was using, the one COR, I can't see in here. That SAMI that I had added in here, it's not even listed because once it has an assembly list on it, it is locked to whatever the assembly code is. So you can't use it as a separate item. It can only be used as what the assembly code items are. So that's one downfall of it. Another one is I can't take now and use that KTNR2 fuse with a double. Like say I needed to put a two holder, a double holder in there that holds two fuses. I can't use it because it's locked to the single holder through that assembly code. So that's a couple of things that are different about it. The other is, of course, with the bill of materials. Let's go ahead and generate this real quick by hitting the right buttons. So again, I'm going to go active drawing. We'll go ahead and grab my format, and we'll do this as my display tally purchase order. Now I'm going to also show this one in a out-of-the-box bill of material here in a minute just to show you where it works. My bill of material is really set up to be a single bill of material for a per item numbering. But what happens here in my per item numbering one, when I get those assembly codes, you can see right here 5 through 6. I got what I want on items 6 and 5 right here. But see here, I've got item 5 and 6 and item 5, 6 again for the holder and for it. So with this, I can see that, yeah, I've got 2 of these coming and 2 of these coming, but my item numbers are kind of confusing because they use the same item number. This bill of material is not really made for that particular one, so we're going to go ahead and use the out-of-the-box one, which has no customization done on it. I'm just showing it so you can see exactly what it's going to look like there. So you can kind of see with item 5 and 6 there. It gives me item 5. There's one of them. It has the fuse, the holder, and the cover. Item 6, one of them, fuse, holder, and cover. So this is the method it uses when it's doing a per component based bill of material or item numbering system instead of a per item numbering. A lot of companies do it this way. I have several clients that do it this way, and this is their preference. The assembly code, assembly list works very, very well for them. But let's look at the pros and cons here if we're using that method. First of all, easy to set up in the catalogs. Just gotta make sure the numbers match on both the code setup and the list setup. Now I need to show you one other way to put that in case you don't have access here when we follow this, and I'll show you in just a second. But here, one of the other pros is you can have multiple parents using the same children. You saw that when I was showing you that one slide that had all the different fuses that were using the same assembly code, but only one holder, one cover that was using the assembly list part of it. So it's multiple parents using the same exact children. That's easy to set up there. It's easy to copy and edit parents. I just copy the footprint. Pretty much done. There's not any mistakes you can make there. You can, when you go to the assembly, on the assembly and hit the catalog check, you see everything that's in that assembly. So that's nice. The cons on it is I can only use the default catalog. So if you're a company who does have your stuff separate in a secondary catalog, that's like I am, that's lots of times a deal breaker for this particular method because you can only use that default catalog. People who are only using the default catalog, that's not an issue for them. So it just depends on whether that's how you're doing your catalogs. My assembly list parts cannot be used without a parent. That's what I was showing you when I tried to look up that cover, when I tried to look up that holder. I can't find them in there to be able to place them without the parent because they are linked and connected to the parent through the assembly list and the assembly code. No per part item numbering, only per component. Again, if you're doing per component numbering, that's a pro for you. Most of my clients do per part item numbering, so that becomes a con for them because they want to separate that stuff. So that one can go either way depending on what system you use. The last one is there's not easily mixed. In other words, I can't take that fuse and mix it, take that 20 amp fuse and mix it with a single holder, double holder, and triple holder because it's locked to whatever it is in that code and code list and everything. But just in case that's something that you are interested in using, let's go back over here and let me show you. If you don't use Access, it's pretty simple to actually add that same information to the assembly code. And basically all you have to do, I'm just going to go to the catalog lookup real quick, and we'll hit that one. Actually, I'm going to do the 25 here. We'll hit that one, hit edit. So basically I just need to edit it here, and where it says assembly code, if this is going to be the main, I'd check that box and pick whatever assembly codes are in that particular. It's looking for assembly codes and the fuse in all the fuses, and that would attach that one to it. If this is going to be in the assembly list portion, check that box and pick it there. And you can have one or the other. You can't have both. It's one or the other. It's got to either be the code part, the parent, or the list part, the child. So basically you can add it there without access in that method. So it's not too difficult to get it custom in there whether you're using access or not. I just like to use access because I can see everything a little bit better. Third method that we're going to go into, and I hope Ruben's keeping up with that chat box. I can't see it because it's not on my screen right now. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Third method here is that we're going to use multiple catalog data entry. This is also out of the box, nothing fancy here, or as far as nothing unusual here. So we're going to come over here and take another fuse. We're going to go back to the 30 amp one. KTNR 30 right there. Alright, so we're going back to our original fuse we're using. Hit OK, and that's what you see. The first thing is, because I hit OK, and this is what I was going to tell you a minute ago, and I got mixed up that this happens on this one, not on the assembly code. That fuse is tied to a particular footprint. It's not an assembly. So normally, when you're doing this type of an assembly, you're probably going to have to you're probably not going to be able to use the out-of-the-box footprint, or unless you go to the footprint catalog and change it, or footprint lookup and change it to look at the assembly instead. But you're going to have to do some customization there if you wanted it, or you're just going to have to manually place it in by hitting browse, come over to it. This is the exact same assembly we're using with the ones above. We'll place it in there. And you can see it's already got the item number in there because it recognized that and everything. So from here we would build our fuse. And we would do that through the multiple catalog right here. So basically in this method we're going to come to the multiple catalog. We're going to do the catalog lookup. Let's go find the holder. So it's going to be R250, and there it is at the top at that point. And it put in the item number because it knew it from back when we did it on the very first method. So it's using the same item number. We'll grab the cover. So the first thing you'll notice in doing it this method, actually this is going to be in our secondary catalog, in doing it in this method is that it's a little bit slower than the assembly code and assembly list method in the sense that everything's not already hooked up. So we're actually having to go pick it, let it go through the line number and all that stuff, place it in there, and there it is. Another nice thing about it is the way it balloons. Whoops. Remember on the very first method we had to place the balloons one at a time. In this particular method, we can place the balloon and it picks up all three of them in one nice little strip there. So we don't have to balloon one time. So it picks up speed on the ballooning part of it compared to the first method, but its speed in building it is in between the assembly code method and this method once that's built. Now here's the downside to it. I like to call this the PSL syndrome, which is my shortcut for it, but it's the post-schematic list syndrome. What happens here if you have placed this and you've done all the multiple catalog and then you go to your schematic list, the schematic list wins. So I'm going to connect this to 105, hit OK. Everything looks great. I hit OK. Notice my two bubbles disappeared right here. And the reason being is that when it connected to the schematic list, it deleted all my multiple information here. So the key when you're using this multiple catalog information here is always connect it to your schematic first. Then you can go through and do your multiple catalog here, because now I'm going to have to do the exact same thing over again to get it all back in there because of that little, like I said, I call it post-schematic list syndrome. It also makes it easier for me to write it on a PowerPoint here in a minute. And we'll put up the 9i. So basically I ended up having to do the work twice, all because of that schematic list resetting itself. And I'm going to show you a workaround for that here in a minute. But we got that one, got it on there. Notice it went ahead and put the two bubbles back in there, and it's updating the schematic list so that now even on the schematic list I could go to this catalog check. And it's got all three pieces of information in that assembly, just like the original one of the assembly code assembly list. So I'm kind of getting the best of both worlds with this one. I just got that one little hiccup that drives me crazy. Now, copying it, I'm going to copy this footprint. It's just as simple as doing it with the audit with the list and everything. This time, what I'm going to do to keep it from losing that information, I'm going to connect this one up to this fuse 106, which is totally blank on the other one. Before I hit OK, the habit to get into if you're doing this after the fact, the post-schematic list, is to hit multiple catalog here, hit OK, and now it's going to maintain all the information. So it's just hitting that button, making sure you don't lose all that information when you're attaching it to the schematic list after you've already attached it. Added all the information for the multiple catalogs, so that bypasses that issue. So it's two things that have to happen. You either have to put it connect the schematic list first. If you're connecting this second, before you hit that OK button, hit that multiple catalog, then OK, and you're done. So it's an easy workaround. It's just getting in that habit, of doing it every single time. Now, another way that you could look at this is we could do this on the schematic side. If I came over here on the schematic side, we'll go to number 107 here, and I'm going to add for this one, we'll make this one the 20 amp just to make it something different. I can do the multiple catalog over here on this end also, so we're going to go ahead and grab each of those covers and things like that. Like I said, I'm going to show you a way in a minute that'll even top this. All right, so we got that one in there. Go ahead and go to item number 2 here, and we'll pick up the cover. So when I do it this method, what I'm doing is I've got all the information now in my schematic side. That's fine. We'll close and save that. So back on my footprint side, now it's going to connect automatically with my schematic list, whether I do it with the icon menu. For speed's sake, I'm just going to connect it straight from the schematic list this way. Now we're not going to do project. And we'll just, let's see, mark the existing, hide the existing. So that was Fuse 107 right there. And I'm going to make sure to do manual because that one doesn't, I want to browse over and pick up that assembly. It looks like I got a setting wrong someplace, so this is the same assembly. But all the information of the multiple catalog, as you can see by the 2 here telling me that I've got 2 additional items, has picked up and carried over from the schematic list or from the schematic itself. So another way to bypass that is what I'm saying here is if you fix it on the schematic first, then it's going to naturally come up on the footprint side correct without that issue of erasing stuff when you connect the schematic list. So a couple of workarounds there for that post-schematic list. Normally what I do is I just hit, my habit is just hit that multiple catalog. I had to pretty much convince myself not to touch it to make it do it earlier. Another good advantage though when working with an item such as this is I can actually do, that's over the assembly code and assembly list version, is I can actually come over here and I can mix and match these. So for instance, I can take this busman fuse here, and I'm going to keep it on the 31 there, but do the browse, and I'm going to grab the double. So for instance, right here is a busman with assembly of 2. So I could not do this with the assembly code and assembly list version, but I can do that with this version to where I connect it up. I can tell it this particular one. Let's go ahead and hit the schematic list first. Is this fuse 108? There's not a 109 here because 108 is actually a linked fuse. Go back there. The 108 and 109 are linked together as one fuse, as a link. So basically, I can tell it this one's going to have 2 of those 30 amps. Come over here to this one, and this is the way I can kind of build these assemblies on the fly. So we'll put in here the R250, and I forgot to clean up the filter first. All right, so the R250, but this one is the 2CR, which is the 2-pole fuse block. And then go over here to the cover. Again, back in the secondary catalog. But for this one, I'm going to have 2 covers, so I want to make sure to tell the count that it's 2 covers. So what happens is I end up with a correct bill of material of 2 fuses, 2 covers, but only 1 holder. So there you go. Okay, so there's where I forgot to number something. Probably the holder right here. So we're going to make that one number 8. And that will correct my put them out of order, but I can correct that by just redoing the balloon if I wanted to make sure they were in order. Just redo it. There you go. And that would also carry over into my bill of material the same way that everything else has done. So active drawing, format. We'll do the display tally for this version. Close it. There you go. Got the bill of material done. And now it's got everything still going in a tallied format the way I want it. But it's a little bit faster than the other method. So in other words, let's look at the pros and cons of this method. On method 3 here. It's very, very flexible. I can use the same fuse in multiple different holders, everything's very, very flexible. I've got the ability to use a secondary catalog. I can mix and match these things at will. It's easily copied using the footprint. There's no worries about, like we had with the first one, having to do the assembly and having to hit that skip. I can do per part or per component item numbering with this method. There's nothing that will stop me from doing it either way. So no matter how I have it set, this one will work. And it will balloon everything when I'm doing per part item numbering. It'll balloon everything in one command. I don't have to sit there and balloon each one individually. So it's a lot faster than the first version. The cons is it can be time consuming compared to the assembly code, the assembly list. It's going to take you a little bit longer. And you got that PSL syndrome where if you hit that schematic list and hit OK, all of a sudden it erases everything you just did. So you've got that to deal with. However, I showed you a couple of workarounds for that. The other thing is you can do the schematic first and then add the panel item numbers. You're going to have, every time you add one, you're going to have to make sure to hit multiple catalog and hit the item numbers if you did it on the schematic first. That's the reason I had to go back and change that item by 8 because I'd left it off. So you have to make sure to get the item numbers in there as a second step in the panel side if you're adding it from the schematic first. And normally you're going to be using footprints that are inserted manually because most of the time those footprints for like that 30 amp is keyed to a 30 amp fuse. So to get the assembly in there, I'm going to have to manually do that unless I want to go through and fix all that in the footprint lookup. So that I can do a little additional work and make that work a little bit faster. However, there's method 4. Now, method 4 is not one you'll find in any help files or anything else. This is the way I do it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it first, and then I'll show you how I did it. Because there's a little bit of customization that you have to do to make it work. So if you know me, you've ever dealt with me in a class or on a case or anything, you know that I like to tinker and try to find an easier way to do something. And so this is something I came up with a long time ago that works quite well for both the per component basis or per item number basis. It'll work for either one. So the first thing I'm going to do is come back here to my icon menu, put in a fuse again, and we're going to do a catalog lookup, and I'm going to go to my secondary catalog where I've added this. And I've got 4 assemblies I've added in here. I could have 200 assemblies if I wanted to, different variations if I wanted to. It's not going to require any additional footprints and things like that. I could do this with a footprint out of the box. It doesn't care as long as it's got the correct, the correct attributes. We're going to start with this one here. This is a single assembly. I'm not going to do all 4 of these. These I already have hooked up into my catalog lookup, so it's going to actually go right to it. So far it looks pretty much the same. But what you'll notice here, as soon as this one has popped up, it's already got my holder in it. It's already got my cover in it. It already has all that information. Now it does not have the item number information. That I have to click find on for it to get that. But it does come over with everything else, and I can, whoops, didn't mean to do that one. We'll just hit OK for now and come back to that in a minute because this is not my catalog I want to end up with. But same issues works with this though. If I hit the schematic list, come in here and connect this one up to 110 for instance, hit OK, everything looks fine. As soon as I hit this, let's go ahead and change this to the correct one. I'm just going to, instead of going to the catalog, I'm just going to give it the catalog name right there of the KTN R30, which is a 30 amp. Alright, so everything looked like it's working just fine. The problem is, excuse me, again, I forced it to do the give me the PSL syndrome. I forced it to erase everything. So now it's erased everything I did as far as back here. So I'd have to put all that back in again using the other method. Fortunately, with this method, I can just go select it again from my catalog. Give it all back in there, give it back to item number 3. Let's get rid of that count. That's stuck from something else. We'll go ahead and back this off to 30. Put the 30 amps in there already, hit OK, and that put all the information back in there. I just don't see it yet because I haven't hit the edit footprint, but it's all back in there. So it was an easy way. If I forgot to accidentally hit OK, it's easy for me to correct that one because I just go back to the catalog, grab it again, and I just have to make sure to change my main piece to the correct views. So that was an easy fix. However, just like the other one, that one, let me delete that one and just, we'll just do one without it, without doing it. Just like the other one, we'll do fuse 11. Just like the other one, if I was to put this one in, and I forgot to hit the right one there. Grab, this time I'll just grab this 1DR just to show you a different one. So if I just grab that one and come in here, so this is one that goes on a DIN rail. So it's got 4 pieces on it. And it picked up, as you see, all 3 pieces. So now I've got the multiple catalog for, there's the actual holder, there's the fuse cover, got to hit find. So the extra steps I do have to take is to make sure to do that. Now I've got the this one here, we'll just use the next available number. The thing is, if I go and connect this now to a fuse over here, we'll connect it back up to this 111. I have to make sure still to do this. I can still do that, solve all the issues, and not have to worry about it. We'll go ahead and fix this back down now to the 30 amp. Because the same fuse cover and everything for anything from a 1 amp to a 30 amp. Actually, I think it does a little more. We'll leave it as is. And everything should be working. So it gives me a method to get back if I accidentally forget and hit that schematic, OK, after that schematic list connection. But it also works just like the other one. Ooh, I thought I did put those. I probably didn't do the, I had to hit the find afterwards too. So still had to, when it cleared out my bill of material numbers, so I have to make sure to hit that. So you have to walk through it after that schematic list. But I at least got the information where I didn't have to go back and pick each one individually like I did before. So mix and match these things however you want to and do it this method. So I'm going to go back over here. This time I want to show you a separate thing. So another way I can fix this schematic stuff and use this is the key here is the attributes. So basically here on drawing 2, this is the same fuse, and again I'm going to show you the attribute information here in a minute. This is the same fuse, but in while doing the webcast, we had a little hiccup, and the recording did not take for the very ending. So I am picking up where the recording ended. If there's maybe some differences in my screen and the way it looks, maybe in the volume, I apologize for that, but I have no method of setting that information to get it exactly like it was for the webcast. But where we're going to pick up here is we're going to take a look at what we just did with the fuses, putting them in from the footprint side using those assemblies in the secondary catalog. On the schematic side, it's a little bit different because it will not work out of the box the way we have it. To show that, I'm going to go over here to the very first drawing again. This right here is fuse 112. It is, all the fuses in this drawing are out of the box schematic symbols. So if I come over here to the edit component, do Lookup, go to that secondary catalog exactly like we did before, and pick the single assembly, hit OK. Now on the schematic side, you have to hit OK for it to take normally, but even though I did that here, you can see no multiple catalog information came in here. And the reason being is it's missing some attributes that it needs in order to work. On my footprints on the other side, I had these attributes already in there because they were custom footprints to begin with, since no footprints come from Bussmann fuses, so they were all customized to begin with all the missing attributes. But on the schematic out of the box, missing those attributes, which I'll show you in a minute, it's not going to work. Come over here to the second drawing, and here I'm using the actual customized symbols for the fuses that I've created. They're going to work differently. They look the same. I just took them into Symbol Builder and added some attributes. Before I show you that part, though, let's show you how it works from this end. I will do the Lookup. Again, go into my secondary file where I have this set up with a single assembly. Hit OK. hit OK because it doesn't take until after you've hit OK and re-entered it here. And you'll see the multiple catalog information is here. Now before I go look at that, let's go ahead and take our fuse down to the correct one that it's supposed to be. This is a 30 amp. Click in there better. Right, 30 amp. And it's going to be single busman fuse. So we'll go ahead and put the count item number in here. It's item number 3. So then we'll hit the look. Didn't mean to hit lookup. Then we're going to hit the multiple catalog. You can see where it put that information in here. This is item number 7. We'll go over here to number 2, which is the cover, and this will be item number 9. So you can see how everything works pretty much the same, but you have to exit out first to get it to work. We'll go ahead and say OK. Now over here, just since we did a double on the other one, I wanted to show you how I could control this stuff as a double on the also from the get-go on this side. So we'll go again. This time I'm going to grab this double assembly. We'll hit OK. You hit OK. It's going to update the child fuse there. We'll go ahead and edit the component, and you can see it's got all the information in there that it needs. So we'll go ahead and say this is item number 3, and that's a 30 amp. Go to the multiple catalog lookup. Again, you can see here's the holder in here. And say this is item number, what is it, 8, I believe it was. And we'll go to the cover, and it's going to need 2 of those. So it's got the 2 count in here. Automatically came in also. And this is item number 9. Also, I didn't point it out, but it got 2 on the fuses also. That automatically came in. So all that information came in. You can hit OK, update the child. Everything's good to go. Now let's go to our panel drawing. We'll just place them down here. And you can see if we're working off the schematic list. Of course, it helps to go to the panel drawing or tab. And we're going to go ahead and reload because it looks like this has not been loaded since we did that. All right, so there's the first one there, which is the Fuse 201. Now, because I changed it back to the KTN R30, I can't use the insert method like I did on the footprint. If I wouldn't have changed it, would have waited until after I placed the footprint, then I could have done that. But I'm going to have to hit manual and go over here and browse to get the actual correct assembly footprint, which is this one right here. We'll place it down right here. And there you go. Everything's coming in just as it's supposed to. Go ahead and place number 2 in here. Again, we'll do the manual version. So we'll browse and go select our actual footprint, which is this version of the Assembly 2. Place it right up here. Hit OK. And of course, ballooning now works just like it does if I did it from the footprint side. So you can see making it work. The reason I was working on these footprints altogether, the product doesn't come with any Busman Fuse footprints. Everything here at the Busman Fuse footprints are custom. But it does come with this footprint or the symbol. And so this is where we'll just show you here. I'm going to go to Symbol Builder and show you the attributes I added. That was this HFU1. We'll hit OK. And I keep it nice and neat. So everything here is out of the box except for this column right here. This is the attributes I had to add in order to make it work. And these same attributes are in the footprints, exact same names, everything, both the footprints and the symbol. So here you can see Cat and manufacturer, they were both there for that main piece, but the count wasn't, so I had to add a count for the main one. I had to add manufacturer 1, catalog 1, and count 1, and I did the same thing for 2 and 3, up to 99, because if you remember, you can have up to 99 sub-assemblies and those multiple lookups, so you can do as many as you want. I did the 4, even though I was only using the first 2. that one where I had the den rail, I used number 3. Wasn't using 4, but I put 4 in there just to play it safe. So you can add as many as you need to, or you feel you need to. It just needs to be that name. And once you've got these created, you can actually copy paste them. You can create a block that you insert, however you want to do it, to make this work just really quick and easy. Once you've got this, you can just copy paste. That way you don't have to keep creating the attributes over and over again. I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of this without saving. But those are the attributes I created. Now, to show you how they work a little bit closer, let's look back here at the PowerPoint. Here's those same attributes again. And let me first show you in the Access. Right here you can see what I've done is I've added to here, each of these catalog assemblies here, I've added a text value. And those text values reference back to those attributes. So we're just filling in the attributes. The reason it didn't work on that very first one we did was because those attributes didn't exist. It had nothing to write them to, so it just ignored them. In our case, once we added those attributes, everything is there in order for it to fill them in correctly. So basically that text value field under my catalog for each one, this happens to be the assembly one right here, is the top one. So it's got the manufacturer one. It's being filled out with busman. The cat one is being filled out with the holder. And then cat 2 is being filled out with the manufacturer. And cat 2 for the cover. If you start looking at something that's a little bit like the double, for instance, here's where I've told the count that the fuse is going to have 2. So it's filling in that attribute. Here's manufacturer 1 again. It's getting the busman and the catalog for the holder. Here's for manufacturer 2 is getting the busman, the cover, and it's getting a count of 02 so that it knows to put 2 in that assembly. And that way everything gets filled out correctly. Same thing if I was looking at this one here. Here's where if it went a little bit further, this is where it's putting in the den rail. So I've started filling out 03. And so you can see it's just a matter of having the attributes exist, and they have to be named this way to work. So having the attributes exist with this naming convention, and then having the text values pass them right along back to it. So I can use that same symbol for multiple different methods of text values being passed by. I've heard of people that just put the information directly in the symbol. You could do that also, but then that symbol stuck with that information unless you manually change it. This method here is once I pick it in the catalog, it puts the correct information in there. I use the same symbol over and over again as much as I need to, or the same footprint. So that basically is how all this is setting up to work. Now, back in the bill of material, if you wanted to look at that real quick, go back to the drawing 3. Really no need to do that, but we're going to delete this part out. So, Mark 2. So now, Mark 2. Back on the screen, this is where we're picking up with Mark 2. Once I get this off of my screen where I can see what I'm doing. All right, Mark 2. So now, pros and cons for method 4. The custom footprints and components for assemblies. It's going to be, the pros, it's going to be extremely flexible. You can use the same footprint, same symbols over and over again with all different kinds of ones that just have different text values being passed to it. You can do it in a secondary catalog. You can also do it in the primary default catalog. It doesn't matter which one. It will work both ways, but you have the capability of doing it both. They can be easily copied. You can just copy one to the other, make a few changes. You can copy and paste those attributes. It can be easily fix the ones out of the box or for totally custom footprints, however you want to do it. It can work with both per part and per component item numbering. The multiple ballooning works just like anything else. You just balloon it as normal. And it eases the pain of that PSL syndrome because, I didn't show you, but if I would have done the schematic list after the fact, I just go pick it again out of the catalog. It refills everything out, and then I just got to redo it real quick and easy to fix it without having to go through a lot of trouble. The cons, you're going to require some customization. It's pretty simple customization. Add some attributes. Add a text value field in the catalog. That's pretty much it. but it does require some customization. The cons, you must assign multiple part item numbers. In other words, I still have to go through there and say, this is item number 8, this is item number 9, things like that. Now, technically, I could put those attributes in there for the item numbers. Technically, I could put that as a text value field. But most of the time, the item numbers are not going to be the same from job to job. Now, if you're a company where the item numbers are always the same in every job you do, go at it. Put those item numbers in the text value field. Put those attributes in there for it, and you'll be able to assign that automatically. But most people aren't. You're going to have to do that individually anyways. You'd have to do that anyways for any other method you have to do it, so you're not really losing any time. You just got to remember to do that. That's it. That's the only negative comments I can come up with on that one. So I'm going to put it back on this screen just so you can see it here for a little bit. I wish we had the section where I answered some questions. Unfortunately, that didn't get recorded, but we did get the ending in here for you, so I hope you were able to learn something about when you're working with the assemblies and sub-assemblies in AutoCAD Electrical.